Her remarks hurt me more than any blow I'd ever endured. The coffee cup I was holding dropped out of my hand and broke on the floor of the cafe. People turned to look, but all I could see was her face. I swear that at that instant, the whole world stopped moving except for my heart. Madison said again, "I'm pregnant, Jake." Her voice shook just enough to let me know she was afraid. "And it's yours." I looked at her across the small booth at the Silver Maple Diner, where we used to share pancakes at midnight like two broke youngsters in love. The same red vinyl seat now felt too small and tight, as if the air had been sucked out of the room. She had long brown hair that was pulled back into a messy ponytail, and she kept twisting the paper napkin in her hands until it started to fall apart. How far along?" I inquired, and my voice sounded odd, like it belonged to someone else. "Almost 8 weeks," she said. "From the weekend at the lake. The last time we were together. The lake." Just hearing her say it brought back memories I had wanted to forget. The cabin is outside of Austin. The sound of the rain hitting the roof. Her head was on my chest. The way she cried when she informed me she was going to New York and didn't want to go long distance. I begged her to stay, but she left anyhow. I gulped hard and looked down at the coffee that had spilled and was slowly spreading across the floor. The waitress ran over with a rag and asked if everything was okay. I nodded without looking at her and said, "Yeah, sorry, I just dropped it." She left, and it was just Madison and me again. I answered slowly, "So you just got back to Austin after 3 months to tell me I'm going to be a dad?" I was trying to grab onto something concrete. She flinched at how I spoke. "I didn't just come back. I learned about it last week in New York. I was scared. I got a ticket that same day. Since this morning, I've been waiting in my car outside your place, trying to think of a way to inform you." I leaned back and put my hand on my chest, as if that would help my heart slow down. Do you really know it's mine?" Her eyes were full of pain and rage. "Jake, there was no one else. You know me better than that." And I did. That was the worst part. Madison was headstrong, emotional, and quick to act, yet she never lied. I massaged my face with both hands and let out a big breath. "Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I really don't know how to deal with this." We were quiet for a moment. The window behind her revealed the dismal Austin afternoon, with trucks going by on the interstate and rain threatening but not quite falling. Life was carrying on as usual, but mine seemed like it had turned upside down. She whispered softly, "I kept hearing your voice in my head. From the lake, remember? You put your palm on my stomach and joked, 'One day we're going to put a baby in there.'" I winced. "Yes, I remember." "Well," she muttered, tears in her eyes, "today is the day." I wasn't sure if I should laugh, cry, or run away. I said, Are you going to keep it?" Instead, she nodded right away. "Yes. I made up my mind already. I'm afraid, yet I want this baby. Jake, this is our baby. Our child." The words fell over me like a heavy blanket. I thought of my small one-bedroom apartment, my work at the auto shop, and my old Ford pickup that broke down every other week. I thought of my payments that were late, the inexpensive pizza, and how I still sometimes skipped dinner to pay the rent. I remembered that my dad left when I was 10 and that my mom worked 2 jobs at the hospital to keep us going. I had promised myself that I would never be that kind of man. "What do you want from me?" I asked. She looked me in the eye without blinking. "I want you to be the dad. Be there for real. Don't merely give money or run away when things get tough. Let's work this out together." "And what about us?" I asked before I could stop myself. "What about us, Madison?" She opened her mouth, as if she had been waiting for that inquiry. She said, "I don't. No, I hurt your feelings. I get that. I also broke mine. I assumed my dreams were in New York City. I thought it was best to leave you. But when I saw those 2 pink lines, you were the first person who came to mind. Not my job. Not my place. You." My chest hurt. I remembered that she had left. I remembered not sleeping for days and looking at my phone, waiting for a text that never came. I remembered how my mom hugged me when I eventually broke down and cried in the garage. "I asked you to stay once," I murmured softly. "You picked your job." She nodded, and tears ran down her face. "I know, and I have to deal with that every day," I responded. "And now you're here, asking me to stay." She didn't say no. For a moment, I pictured it. Me and Madison living in a modest house near the outskirts of Austin, with a crib in the corner, baby clothes drying in the dryer, and the scent of pancakes on Sunday morning. It was scary and warm at the same time. I didn't mean to, but I heard myself ask, will we get married now? The words hovered between us like a thin bridge. Madison's eyes got bigger. It wasn't a proposal where you got down on one knee. It was a mix of terror and hope. I didn't even have a ring. I didn't have much money in my bank account, so I could only fill my gas tank. But the idea of my child growing up like I did, with one parent always gone, made my stomach turn. She said, "You want to marry me?" "I don't know what I want," I said honestly. "I just know that if I'm going to be a father, I don't want to be a visitor in my child's life. I desire a family." I shrugged helplessly when I thought about a family. "It's you. You have always been the one." She looked down at her shaking hands, then back up at me with eyes that were full of shame, need, and something like dread. She said, "I need to tell you something first." My heart sank. "Madison, if you're about to say," she swiftly cut in, "it's not that. It's not about the baby. You have the baby. I swear." "Then what?" I asked. She looked around the diner, then leaned in closer and said in a voice that was barely above a whisper. She said, "I didn't leave Austin just for a job. And if we're going to make any decisions about marriage or this baby, you need to know why I really left." And just like that, the ground underneath me moved again. For a moment, I assumed she was going to say something easy, like she was afraid of making a commitment or that her dream job was too vital. Something that might hurt, but at least make sense. She said, "I saw your dad instead." My throat got tight. "What?" "Gary," she said quietly. "He's here to see me." Before I departed Austin, I shook my head without thinking. "That's not funny, Madison." "I mean it," she said. "He came to the coffee shop where I used to study. He knew my name, where I worked, and some things about us, Jake. And he looked terrible. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks." All of a sudden, the Silver Maple Diner was too bright and too noisy. I could hear the sizzle from the kitchen, the clink of forks, and the hum of an old country song on the radio, but it all faded away. I answered softly, "My dad left when I was 10. I haven't seen him since then. He doesn't just show up." "I know," she said. "That's why I lost it. I knew who he was from the portraits in your mom's hallway. I was about to walk past him when he stepped in front of me." My heart raced against my ribs, and I felt a mix of rage and dread in my chest. "And you never thought to tell me this before now?" She looked guilty in her eyes. "What would you have done if I told you?" I said, "I don't know. Maybe I asked him why he believed he had the right to talk to my girlfriend. Maybe hit him in the face. I don't know, but at least it would have been my choice." Madison bit her lip and leaned forward, speaking more softly. "Jake, he told me something. Something about you. About why he went." I looked at her, and every muscle in my body was taut. No one said anything about that night. Whenever I inquired, my mom would shut off. I only knew that one day he was there, and the next day his closet was empty and his truck was gone. "What did he say?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She hesitated, and her eyes moved away. "He stated he fled because it would have been dangerous for you to stay. He got in with some people he shouldn't have. He had a lot of debts. They kept an eye on him. They went home with him. He claimed that the only way to keep you safe was to go away." I laughed bitterly. "That's helpful. I left my kid to keep him safe." "He's a real hero," Madison responded. I didn't believe him either. Not at first. But then he said something else to me. He said they had begun to ask about you. I felt something chilly settle in my gut. "About me? Why?" "He departed when I was still a kid." "Because you are his son," she said. "Because they don't care how old you are." He stated they sought power. A method to pull him back. A way to get him to pay. I had a hard time swallowing. This seemed like something from one of those crime dramas my mom watched to fall asleep. Not my life. Not Austin, Texas, where my biggest difficulty last year was a customer yelling at me because I scratched his Chevy. I asked, "What does this have to do with you leaving?" "That was a long time ago. Those folks don't even know my name." Madison stretched out and took my hand across the table. Her fingertips felt chilly. "He told me to leave you," she replied softly. "He told me that if I loved you, I would leave. That they would have a motive to look more closely at your life if you continued with me. That anyone who was close to you could be a target. He stated I was already on their radar because he had seen me a few times. To your home. To the car repair shop." My skin felt like it was going to break. I felt sick all of a sudden. "Was he following you?" "Yes," she said. "He told me he was trying to make sure no one else was. But the way he talked and constantly looking over his shoulder worried me. He seemed weird to me. But every night that week, A black SUV parked across the street from my building. Same place. At the same moment. Could have been anyone. I answered, even though I was getting more and more scared. He said they were checking, she kept saying. Seeing people you cared about. He implored me to get out of town. Break his heart now, or watch him get hurt later, he said. I pulled my hand back. So you just took his word for it? A guy who left his own kid? Her voice broke. No. I could see the fear in his eyes. Jake, I've never seen an adult man look like that. He seemed like he was already running away from his own shadow. I didn't leave because I wanted a job more than you did. I left because I couldn't handle the idea of you becoming hurt because of me. There was silence all around us. My jaw was tight. I wanted to tell her she was crazy, that my dad was lying, and that this whole thing was just another excuse. But the fearful 10-year-old side of me, the one whose dad disappeared overnight, murmured, "What if it's true? And you didn't think I should know any of this?" I asked in a quiet voice. She jumped. I was going to tell you. That night by the lake, I almost did. But every time I looked at you, I imagined you getting drawn into something bad by a man who had already messed up your life too much. So I thought, if I make you hate me, you'll let go faster. I remembered how she avoided looking me in the eye that last morning, how her hands shook as she packed her luggage, and how she told me it wasn't enough anymore. I assumed it was only me, that I wasn't enough. I said, "You didn't have the right to make that choice for me." "I know," she said in a low voice. "And I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know everything, because we're having a baby. Because I think." She stopped and looked out the window of the diner. I looked where she was looking. There was a black SUV parked at the exit across the parking lot, next to a line of old pickup trucks and sedans. Windows are dark. The engine is going. It might have been anyone, a group of people, a guy who works in business, a stranger you don't know getting takeaway. But Madison's fingers digging into my arm made me assume she didn't think it was just anyone. "Is that?" I began. "I don't know," she answered hurriedly. "It might not be anything. I've been seeing a lot more cars like that. In the state of New York. Here. And every time I do, I hear your dad's voice in my thoughts." My heart rate went up again. "You think someone from New York followed you?" "I don't know what to think anymore," she said. "I just knew I couldn't stay away from you once I found out about the baby. I couldn't hide the fact that I was pregnant with your child. I couldn't act like you weren't there. But I also know that if there's even a little chance your dad was speaking the truth, we're not simply making decisions about us, marriage, or co-parenting. We could be making decisions on how to keep our baby safe. Our child." I looked down at her flat stomach, which was disguised by her big gray hoodie. 8 weeks. It's probably smaller than a grape. But all of a sudden, the SUV outside, my father's ghost, and everything else felt too close. "Come on," I murmured, getting up quickly. "Let's leave." We paid and went outside into the thick air of Austin. The sky had finally cleared up, and a gentle rain was falling on the pavement. I led her to my pickup, and I was on edge the whole time. I didn't want to stare at the SUV, but I kept going back to it. The SUV was still there when I started the motor and drove away. Then, when we got on the road, its headlights came on. "Jake," Madison muttered and looked back over her shoulder. "I see it," I murmured, tightening my grip on the wheel. It stayed behind us for a mile. Not too close. Not too far away. Right there. "You still want to talk about marriage?" she inquired, her voice shaking. I laughed without any humor. "Right now, I just want to make sure no one is following us." But there was another notion that pushed through the terror, loud and stubborn. If this was real, if my father's problems were affecting my life again, then it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Madison, and the little, unseen life that was growing inside her. Instead of going left, I went right and walked toward downtown, away from my flat. I wasn't going to give someone my address on a silver platter if they asked for it. "Where are we going?" Madison asked, leaning on the dash with one hand. "To see if they're really following us," I said. I changed lanes twice and then turned onto a side street at random. The black SUV stayed there every time I looked in the mirror. Not too near. Not too far away. Just there. My mouth was dry. "Okay," I said. "That's not nothing." Madison swallowed. "Jake, I'm scared." I looked at her for a second. Her cheeks were pale and her eyes were shiny. One arm was put across her stomach to protect it. "I won't let anything happen to you," I said. "To you or the baby. I promise." The word promise tasted thick. My dad made promises as well. He never did what he said he would. I turned sharply left off I-35 into the parking lot of a big box store. I parked in a row at the front where people pushed carts and kids raced between cars. A lot of people would have to see someone do something out here. The SUV drove past the entrance to the lot, slowed down as if it were going to turn in, and then kept going straight. We both saw it go into traffic. Maybe it wasn't about us, Madison remarked in a shaky voice. Maybe, I responded, but the knot in my stomach didn't become any looser. The truck engine was running, and we sat in silence for a moment. The rain was tapping lightly on the windshield now, just enough for the wipers to produce a gentle squeak every time they moved. Where do you feel safe? I asked. She laughed a brief, humorless laugh. To be honest, not anywhere. I thought New York was huge enough to get lost in, but even there I kept seeing the same dark sedans outside my building and near my subway stop. I thought I was going crazy. I drummed, my fingers on the steering wheel while I thought. My apartment was empty. A motel was terrible. Then I said one thing before I had time to think it through. Mom. Madison turned her head quickly to look at me. Your mom? We can't bring her into this, Jake. I whispered softly. She's already in it. Because of him, she raised me by herself. She is the one who should know what's going on. And her home is in a calm area. A lot of people live nearby. Nosy ones, I said. That's a good thing right now. Madison thought about it for a second, then nodded. Okay, if you think it's safe. I placed the truck in gear and pulled out. This time, I took the same route south, away from downtown, to my mom's modest blue house in an older community off South Lamar. I looked in the mirrors every few seconds. No SUV, no black sedans. There was just normal traffic in Austin. Food trucks, scooters, and people with umbrellas. My hands hurt from holding the wheel so tightly by the time we got to my mom's street. Her house looked just like it usually did. A modest front porch with a swing, a pot of flowers that she could never keep alive, and the Texas flag that had faded in the window. Home. Safe. Normal. I turned off the engine, but didn't move. What's the matter? Madison asked in a gentle voice. I said, it's just hitting me. I'm going to walk in there and tell my mom two things. One, she's going to be a grandma. Second, the man who destroyed her heart might have gotten us into his situation again. Madison reached out and took my hand. I didn't pull away this time. She said, you don't have to be him. You get to choose who you are, Jake. I stared at our hands. Hers were small and icy, and mine were huge and rough from working in the shop for years. I gently squeezed her fingers. Come on, I said. Let's do this. We walked up the path as a group. Even though Mom constantly advised me to just walk in, I knocked once out of habit. The door opened a second later. Jake. Mom blinked at me and then at Madison. She had light brown hair that was pushed back and a trace of flour on her cheek. Well, this is a shock. Hey, Mom. I murmured, making myself grin. Can we come in? We need to talk. There has never been a time in history when that sentence meant anything nice, and the way her eyes narrowed just enough to show it. She moved to the side. Of course. Come in here, both of you. You're wet. We walked into the living room. There was a fragrance of coffee and cinnamon in the house. There was a Hallmark movie on TV, but it was muted. I sat on the couch, and Madison sat on the edge of the armchair like she wasn't sure she should be sitting there. Mom looked at us for a second, then crossed her arms. Okay, which of you is sick, in danger, or getting married? I almost burst out laughing. Almost, I responded. A mix of all three, actually. Mom lifted an eyebrow. That's not funny, Jake. My heart raced. I said, Madison's pregnant. Mom stopped moving. I could hear the refrigerator buzzing in the kitchen. The TV made a soft sound. The sound of rain falling softly outside. Everything seemed clearer, as if time had slowed down. Finally, Mom let out a breath, and her shoulders fell a little. Well, she responded, her voice calm yet tense. That's a lot. She turned to Madison. How far along? 8 weeks, Madison remarked in a low voice. I just found out last week. And you know for sure it's Jake's? Mom asked straight out. I turned my head toward her. Mom. Madison didn't move. Yes, ma'am. I am sure. For a minute, they looked into one another's eyes. Mom nodded once, and then sat down in the chair across from us. Okay, she said. Then that means I'm going to be a grandma. And it means you two need to make some important choices. Her eyes got sharper, but I have a feeling that's not all there is to it. I took a breath. Let's do this. Mom, I continued softly. Did you talk to Dad lately? Someone drew a drape down over her face, and it altered. No, she answered right away. Too quickly. Not enough curve. I said, don't lie to me. And my voice was harder than I meant. Madison saw him. He said he left to protect her. He told me that some guys were after him, and that they might come after me, or the people I love. Mom's lips were tight. For a long time, she didn't say anything. After that, she got up and proceeded to the corner cabinet where she kept her nice dishes and old photo albums. She opened the top drawer and took out a piece of paper that was folded. She brought it back and gave it to me. She said in a low voice, I got this 3 months ago. There's no return address. Only our street and home number. I thought about setting it on fire. I should have told you. I didn't know how. My hands shook as I opened the mail. The pen must have been shaking since the writing was untidy. The first line made my stomach plummet. Hey Jake, your mom told you the truth if you're reading this. It's him, I said quietly as I read the lines. There wasn't much, no detailed explanation or information. Only apologies, alerts, and one statement that made my heart race. They are aware of you now. I looked up. Mom was looking at me with bright eyes that were about to cry. She said, he called once. Years ago. I put the phone down. I told him to never get in touch with us again. This letter came next. I didn't want to bring you back into his mess. You were finally doing well. You had a job. Your own home. Madison. She looked at her. I thought it would go away if I didn't pay attention to it. Madison answered, it didn't. I think I saw a man in Brooklyn who was following me. Then your father. Then that SUV today. Mom fell onto the arm of the couch. She looked little for the first time in my life. I'm sorry, she said softly. Then something changed in me. For years, I was mad at my dad. In life. At all people. But when I looked at my mom and Madison, I thought of something else. The folks who stayed were the ones who had to pay for the misdeeds of the person who went. I gently folded the letter and put it in my pocket. Okay, I said. We're done acting like this isn't real. We can't be casual if they know about me and have been watching the individuals in my life. Not anymore. Jake, what are you thinking? Mom asked. I think we should call the police, I said. We tell them everything. Madison, the SUV, the letter, and my dad. They could think we're insane, but at least it's on record. And we start to think. Don't stroll alone at night. No patterns. No putting places online. Madison nodded slowly. I can stay here for a few days. She looked at my mom and said, if that's okay. Mom thought for a second. Then she reached out and held Madison's hand. She stated in a quiet but forceful voice, if you're carrying my grandbaby, then you're family. You can stay, of course. Madison's eyes got full. Thanks. As I watched them, I felt something warm and tight swelling in my chest. Even though we were scared, confused, and in danger, there was this too. My mom and the woman I loved were in the same room and chose to stand with me. I looked back down at Madison's stomach. I sat down next to her without thinking. I softly put my hand on the front of her sweater. Hey, little one. I whispered softly, feeling silly and sad at the same time. Your dad is here. I'm working things out. But I promise to do everything I can to keep you safe. Madison took a little breath. When I looked up, tears were falling silently from her eyes. She muttered, you really want this? Me. The baby. Everything. Even though it's dangerous. Even if I'm leaving. Even with the mess your dad made. I didn't turn away. I want a life where I don't run away from things that are important, I added. I've been mad at him my whole life. His shadow has been in the way of everything nice for me. You. A time to come. A family. I'm done with that. She looked at my face, as if she wanted to check if I meant it. And what about the marriage? She inquired in a low voice. Was that just panic in the diner, or? My heart raced. I thought about the little boy inside me who desired a family more than anything else, and the man I was trying to be now. I said, it wasn't panic. It was a chaos. Afraid. Not how I thought I'd ask you. But no, it wasn't a joke. Madison's lips shook. She said, I don't know if I deserve that. I said, maybe none of us deserve anything. Maybe we just choose what we want to fight for. My phone buzzed in my pocket before she could answer. A number that isn't known. My blood froze. I rose up, and every nerve ending was on fire. Madison and Mom looked at me with strained faces. Pick it up, Mom said quietly. I tapped accept and put the phone to my ear. Hey there. There was a break. Then I heard a voice I hadn't heard since I was 10. It was older and harsher, but it was clear. "Jake," my dad remarked. "We need to have a conversation. Before it's too late." I couldn't breathe for a second. All at once, memories hit me. The oil-stained boots beside the door, the smell of cigarette smoke on flannel, and the last time I saw a man walk out of my bedroom when I was 10. "Jake?" the voice said again. "Are you there?" Madison's eyes were fixed on me. My mom slowly stood up, putting her palm over her mouth. I made air go into my lungs. "Yes," I answered. "Here I am." He blew out a breath that made the speaker sound like it was crackling. "Good. Hey, son, listen to me. You aren't safe." I laughed quickly and sharply. "Yeah, I figured that out when a stranger in a black SUV decided to follow my truck today. You might want to explain me why your mess is all over my life." He added hurriedly, "I never wanted it to touch you. That's why I went." I snapped. "That's not a reason. You left Mom. You went away from me. You can't sound like a sad hero now." There was a long break. He finally said, "You're right. I don't. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm phoning because these folks are worse than you thought. And now they know about your child." My stomach fell. "What did you say?" Madison's hand flew to her mouth behind me. He added, "I needed leverage to buy time." And his voice broke. "I informed them about you. That I had a kid who lived in Austin. That I would never do what they wanted if they injured you. So they began to watch. Your job. The house of your mother. The girl you were dating." He thought for a moment. "Madison," I shouted, "you put a target on us," my voice quivering with wrath. "You used us to get what you wanted." He added, "I thought I could steer them away if they watched. I've been giving them bad information, which has been slowing things down and stalling. But they are growing impatient. They don't believe me anymore. And when men like that don't trust you, they start to let things go." It felt like the room was getting smaller. I walked to the window, pulled the curtain back a little, and looked down the street. A mail truck, a neighbor's dog, and damp pavement. "Why are they after you?" I asked. "What did you do?" "I got in too deep with the wrong people," he added. "First, gambling. Then getting money. Then more things. I promised myself that I would leave after I paid off my bills. That day never came. When I saw that they were inquiring about my home and my child, I thought the only way to keep you safe was to leave. And how's that working out for you?" I stated it with anger. He answered simply, "I was wrong. I should have gone to the police back then. I should have said anything. Instead, I ran, and I've been running ever since. Now they want one more job. Something enormous. Then they stated they would visit everyone I cared about. That's why I'm calling." I felt a cold sweat go down my back. "What kind of work?" He said, "I'm not telling you that over the phone. I'm not pulling you any deeper than you already are. But I can't do this by myself anymore. I've been having a conversation with someone, an agent of the federal government. They can get these guys if I testify and give them what I know. But they want proof that you and your mom are ready to go into hiding if it comes to that." I shut my eyes. Protection for witnesses? Maybe. Not sure. But things are going quickly, Jake. You don't have a lot of time to think. They are aware that Madison returned to Austin. They are aware that she is pregnant. Madison took a fast breath in. I turned around and looked her in the eye. Fear, anger, but also trust. She nodded slightly, as if to indicate, "No matter what we do, we'll do it together." I swallowed hard. "Where are you?" There was a second pause. He said, "In town. Not far. On South Congress, across from the old boot store, there is a coffee cafe. Table in the back by the window. You need to get there in an hour if you want to talk to the agent and get answers. If you don't, you and your mother and Madison need to leave Austin tonight. Find a calm place. Somewhere they won't think to look immediately away." "And you?" I asked. He let out a sigh. "Son, I'm running out of places to hide." There was a brief pause in the line. I said, "You did this. You pulled us into this. But I won't let you choose how it ends." "Jake." I hung up the phone. I shook my hand as I put down the phone. "What did he say?" Mom asked in a voice that was practically a whisper. I told them. Everything. The bills. The bad guys. The agent. Protection for witnesses. The coffee shop gathering. When I was done, Mom was sitting down with a pale but steady expression. Madison had her hands over her stomach to shield it. "So what do we do?" Madison asked. "Do we run?" I gazed at her. At my mother's house. At the life I had carefully established here. The shop, my friends, and the streets I knew like the back of my hand. I wanted to grab Madison, throw some clothes in a bag, and drive until the map was blank. But running didn't help my dad at all. I don't want to be scared of a man who left me anymore, I remarked. And I'm weary of letting his decisions decide what we do. We are not criminals. We haven't done anything bad. I have to hear it if there's a way to keep you safe, keep our baby safe, and maybe end this for good. Madison looked at me for a long time. She whispered softly, "You sound like a dad." The word smacked me right in the middle of my chest. I took a deep breath. "I'm going to that coffee shop," Madison said right away. "I'm coming with you." "No," I answered. "Not at all." Her eyes lit up. "That baby is also part of me. I have just as much to lose." Mom got involved. "Madison, he's correct. You shouldn't be around those guys at all. Or Gary. If what he says is accurate, they will be keeping an eye on that site." "So what?" Madison said, shaking her voice. "All I can do is sit here and hope he comes back. That's not something I can do. I can't lose him as well." I walked across the room and kneed down in front of her, holding her hands. "Do you remember what you told me at the diner?" I asked. "About wanting me to be there for this baby? Be there for real?" She nodded, her eyes full. "Then let me get going," I said. "Let me take the risk. Your job is to be safe. For you both. I'd never forgive myself if anything happened to you because of my father." Her shoulders sagged. "I hate this." "I know," I answered. "Me too." Madison's mom touched her shoulder. She said firmly, "You're staying here. With me. I'll lock the doors. I'll call a cop acquaintance I trust and tell him we could need help right away. We're not in this alone." Madison glanced back and forth between us, then finally nodded, tears streaming down her face. I hugged her tightly, like if I would never have another chance. I mumbled into her hair, "I'll be back. I don't care what it takes. I'm coming back to you." "Better," she muttered back. "Because you still need to answer my question about marriage." I pulled back, held her face in my hands, and kissed her. It wasn't a kiss that would have been beautiful in a movie. It was salty with tears and quivering with anxiety. Yet there was something firm under all of that, a promise. "I already told you what I thought," I responded softly. "I want you. I want this child. I desire a family. If you still want me. When this is over, I'm all in." She shut her eyes, as if she were trying to remember what I said. "Then you better get back, damn it." Even though it was raining, the coffee shop on South Congress was crowded. People typed on laptops, drank iced lattes, and giggled over open books. It was strange to enter into so much normal when my whole existence seemed like it was on the edge of a knife. I saw him right away, more mature, less thick. His beard is gray, but it was him. My dad, Gary. He was sitting at the rear table by the window with a cup of coffee in front of him that he hadn't touched. A woman in a jacket with short hair and piercing eyes sat across from him. She seemed like she had seen a lot of things and wasn't wowed by much anymore. I walked back there, and every step seemed heavy. "Jake," my dad began, standing halfway, as if he wanted to hug me but wasn't sure whether he had the right. I stopped just short of reaching it. I said, "You have 10 minutes. Use them wisely." He swallowed and then sat back down. The woman looked at me. She said, "Agent Carter," and showed me her badge just enough for me to see it. "FBI. Your dad has been working with us. You probably dislike him. Honestly, I don't blame you. But he's our best chance to put away some really nasty people. And right now, you and the people you care about are in their line of sight." We had a conversation. About orders of protection. About safe homes. About challenges and what people say. It wasn't clean. It was hard. There was, however, a way out that didn't require us to constantly look behind us. "Will they come after my mom?" "Madison?" I asked. Agent Carter stated, "If we do this right, we will get ahead of them. We move you to a new location for a short time. We keep an eye on them. We get your dad to wear a wire, get what we need, and move in before they know what's going on." My dad's hands shook as he held his coffee cup. "I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything," he continued. "But I'm still asking. Let me see if I can fix this. Even if I never see you again after today, I want to offer you a fresh start. Please let me do one thing right." I looked at him for a long time. The man who had been dead for 15 years. The man whose faults stayed with me as I grew up. The man whose blood flowed through my veins, whether I liked it or not. Finally, I said, "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for them. For my mother. For Madison. For my child." He seemed like he felt something. Maybe relief. That's too much for me. It may have been. But as we worked out the specifics and I signed documents and listened to plans, I also felt something else. I felt like I was finally getting out of his shadow. After that, things weren't easy. There were meetings, calls late at night. We stayed at a safe house outside of Austin for a short while. My mom complained about the small pillows, and Madison wailed in my arms when she thought I was sleeping. But we were together the whole time. When Agent Carter called a month later to tell they had arrested 6 individuals in 3 separate states, I felt like I could finally breathe again when she said, "You can go home now." My dad made a deal. Prison term, but with the opportunity to live long enough to see me free of steel bars. I wasn't sure if I would see him. That was a decision for another day. My life was here right now. In Austin, fairy lights hung over the fence in my mom's backyard at sunset, and the smell of barbecue filled the air. Madison stood under the old oak tree. Her hoodie was a little tighter now that her stomach had become a little bigger. My stomach. Our child. I had a plain ring in my hand. Not much. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just something I had saved up for one extra shift at a time. She glanced at me with wide eyes and hands that were already shaking. "Jake, I know this isn't how we both thought it would be," I remarked. "I know we missed some steps. We ended things. We were afraid. We took off. But somehow, we wound up back where we started, at a table in Texas, trying to decide if we're going to do this together." She cried. "I don't have a long speech," I said next. "I adore you, that's all. I love our little one. And I'm done letting fear decide what I do. I'm done avoiding the things that are important. So I'm asking you again, but this time I'm doing it right." I took a deep breath. "Will you marry me, Madison Parker?" She cried and then laughed. "Yes," she answered, and her hair danced as she nodded. "Yes, Jake. Yes." I put the ring on her finger, but my hands were shaky and awkward. She held my face in her hands and kissed me slowly and surely. At that moment, the past was still there. My father's blunders, the danger, and the nights we spent hiding. But it wasn't all there was anymore. There was also this, a girl who had destroyed my heart to save my life. A mother who kept things together when it was falling apart. A tiny heartbeat, still months away from its first breath, was already changing everything. And me, a man who had finally realized that his tale didn't have to end the way it began. I put my forehead on Madison's and my hand on her belly. I whispered, "Hey, little one. It's your dad again. We've been through a lot. But we're here. We're all here. And I promise you this. No matter what happens next, we will face it as a family." Madison's fingers intertwined with mine. Those words didn't scare me this time. They felt like the start of everything.
If this story stays with your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends.